the rest, and we will start our presentation then. Okay, so let's get started. I think we have now. Okay, we are 13 now. Okay.
We can start
So
now?
again?
We can start now.
Yes, we will.
So, how are you, everyone?
Just a minute, Khalid. Okay. Yes. So, good afternoon, delegates. First, let me introduce myself. I am Maram Marwan, a Deputy Secretary General and the Chair of the AZPSMUN. On behalf of the team, I welcome you to
I
this
would like
fruitful
to.
training session. I welcome you to this fruitful training session that is held by our chairs, Jannah Ayman, Khalid Susi, and I. In this session, we will be clarifying all the MUN rules and regulations, starting from the roll call and ending with the resolution paper. If any question came to your mind while the chairs are explaining, don't hesitate to write it in the chat box. And now, hope you stay focused and not miss any detail. Thank you. Let's get started.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So, firstly, I'm going to start with the rules and regulations of any MUN. First, let me start with explaining what does an MUN mean. So, it's the standard form of a model United Nation. So, in the MUN, you will be in a committee, and you will be the delegate of a specific country, whatever the country is given, and you will be having a topic. So, being the delegate of this country, you should defend your country based on what topic was given. For example, let's say I was given the topic was about money laundering, and I'm the delegate of USA. So I should defend USA in this topic, money laundering, and also we should consider the laws and the policies of the countries you're representing. So that's the basic meaning of an MUN. So first, let me start with the rules and regulation for any MUN. Firstly, what I think it's one of the most important rules is that personal pronouns. Avoid using them. For example, we avoid from these things because they can affect your points. And of course, these points will be following a rubrics that will say what points you're going to lose and if you're going to gain points. So personal pronouns, if you use personal pronouns, you're going to lose points. Try using the delegate of the country you're representing. For example, if I'm representing Canada, I would say the delegate of Canada, and then and then mention what I'm going to say. Secondly, everyone must act appropriately and respect others. And then your microphones should always be muted unless asked to unmute, and your cameras should always be turned on. And any misbehaving won't be tolerated by the chairs, and it will affect you negatively. As I said earlier, you're going to lose the points according to a rubrics that the chairs will be following. And lastly, flirting is not allowed as it's strictly prohibited. Uh, let's move on to the dress code. Um, whether the MUN is going to be held online or on campus, please follow the dress code. It's going to be a proper attire. For men, a suit with tie or kanduras are fine. And for women, you can be formal or smart casual or abaya, they're all fine. Skirts should be below the knees and your shoulders must be covered. That's it for the dress code. Moving on to the position paper, and Maram is going to explain what's a position paper.
Yes, thank you. So what is a position paper? A position paper is a short, it's like a well-written essay that includes background information about the topic being discussed, your country's stance on the issue, and possible solutions. Now, writing the position paper is a requirement, and but it also better enhance your understanding of your country's policies. If you don't submit it on time, it will affect you negatively. And noting that not submitting the position paper will not, you will not, like if you didn't submit your position paper on time, you will not be qualified to win any MUN prize later on. Now I will go details explaining the position paper. As I said, it's like a well-written essay, includes background information about the topic and your country's stance on the issue, and then at the end there is possible solutions. I'll give you like a brief explanation of how to include each and everything in each paragraph. For example, in the first paragraph, which is basically the opening statement, you can like answer questions such as, why is this topic important for the committee to address? Or you can say like, what is the background history of your country in dealing with the topic? Also, like for example, you can say something like, why does your country care about this topic in general? And you can also like state some informations about your committee. For example, if you're in the UNODC committee, you can say it stands for what, and you can relate it to the topic too. Now, moving on to the second paragraph, which can include like background of the topic. As I said, you can say what is the background or history of your country in dealing with this topic. And you can say many things. Like I think this part is the easiest part of the position paper because you can find many information on Google about your topic. Now, the third thing is the country's position depending on your country's policies and previous actions towards the issue. So this will be in your like second or third paragraph actually. You will be discussing like national actions, national now, not international, it's national actions. For example, what's your country's national policy to solve the problem? Or you can say, what actions did your country take to address the issue on a national level? Also, for example, you can go on an international level too. Like you can discuss or write about both levels, national, which is like your country, and internationally. You can answer questions such as, how has your country addressed the issue on the international level? Or for example, this one is very important actually, which organizations addressing this issue is your country a member of? Even like you could be attacked with such kind of questions, you know? For example, you can also answer questions such as, what actions has your country taken on the issue on an international level, okay? After that, moving on to the very last thing, which is the possible solutions. The possible solutions basically are recommendations for actions, okay? So you can include things like, what recommendations would your country like to see the international community take to address this issue or this problem? Also, you can include things like, what role would your country like to see in the international community take? And the solutions also, you can write things from your mind, but just, you know, be sure that it can actually be applied in your country, on the level of your country. Now, before that, let's just like look at the formatting of position paper. It's a common format that should be followed in each and every position paper, no matter what your committee is. The font style should be Times New Roman. The font size should be 12 for all text, including headings. And the maximum word limit should be 750, excluding the bibliography. Like the position paper is one page limit, and then in the second page you can write the bibliography, and this 750 word limit is excluding the bibliography. Now, no graphs, tables, or pictures are to be included. Don't include anything other than the text. And a very, very important note, the plagiarism is strictly not allowed. It's not allowed at all to copy anything from the internet. Try to be creative and do things by your own, even though you're getting information from Google. Now, the structure of the position paper, we can see here in the, we can see here in the next slide. There is here the committee name. For example, you're in the UNICEF committee, you can write your committee name, United Nations International Emergency Fund, then your topic. Basically the topic addressed by your committee. You will be provided with the topic after you enter your committee. Next, you can write your country, the country that you are representing, then your name, the delegate name, then you're represented by which school or institution. For example, here in this position paper, we can see it's written from by a student in Al Zuhur Private School. And noting that the deadline submission of the position paper in our AZPSMUN is the 1st of May. Now, before I end this, I need to give you some tips to have a perfect position paper. The first one is do not use the pronoun I. While writing the position paper, instead you can use like your country's official name, for example, United Arab Emirates. Secondly, do not include irrelevant information you learned about the country that are not related to the topic. Like as I said before a few minutes, I told you that you can be creative and present solutions from your mind, but make sure that these solutions are related to your topic and it can be applied to your country, you know? The third one, do not speak negatively about your country and always abide to your country's official policy, as I said. Like for me, as a delegate, I did a huge mistake in my first MUN, and I was actually attacking my country in the position paper. And this is a huge mistake that you should not be doing. Just do not speak negatively and try to defend your country depending on its official policy. The fourth thing, do not support actions that are not in your country's position, even if you personally agree with them. Now, here we are not discussing like your personal opinion. You should keep in mind that you're representing a country and you should follow its policy. And that's it for the position paper. But before that, I just want to tell you that do not panic. Every paper is unique to the topic and the delegate. Like you own all the freedom in deciding what to include and what to keep out. So don't panic and have a good research to have a perfect position paper. Now moving on to the next slide.
Yeah, thank you, Maram. Now moving on to the roll call. The roll call is basically like attendance. So basically when all delegates are in the session, we start every single session by saying the roll call. We ask the delegates whether they're present or present and voting. The difference between present and voting is that present can abstain from voting. I mean, like if you don't want to vote, you can just say you don't want to vote, or you can just remain silent during the votings, and then your vote will be taken as in the middle between both. You don't disagree or agree. And if you're present in voting, you have to vote for every single thing that's said, such as motions and for the resolution paper. We'll get to that later. If you do not state whether you're present or present in voting, you will be marked as late or absent. If you're marked as late, you could send a note to your chairs telling them that you've arrived. And if you're marked as absent, then we cannot change it. Now, moving on to the voting procedure. Voting procedures usually happen during motions and resolutions. It will help decide whether the motion or resolution will pass or fail. Passing means that everybody agrees on it and it shall happen. And fail means that it's not agreed upon and it will not happen. So when there's a motion or resolution set on the floor, the chair will begin to ask whoever whoever votes in favor or for this motion or resolution, raise your placard if we're on campus, and or raise your hand if you're online. That means that you're voting for it to pass, and like you like the motion or you'd like to discuss this topic, so you're voting for it. Now, voting against it means that you do not like this resolution or do not like this motion, and you wish for it not to pass or not be discussed. That means it will not be happen. Obviously, the votes will occur like the majority. We will be taking the majority of votes, and then the third is abstaining from it. So as I mentioned before, you can only abstain from voting if you are present. Present and voting delegates have to vote for every single motion and for the resolutions as well. And moving on to the motions. The first motion is motion to set the agenda. This motion is the very first motion set on the ground of discussions. Basically, it is used in the very beginning of the debate. When we first entered the first session, a delegate would again raise their placard and say motion to set the agenda. That means it's motion to start discussing this topic that will be given to you by your chairs. And then voting will take place. Will it pass or fail? But it usually passes with an overwhelming majority, because that means we're going to start our debates. Moving on to the general speakers list. In this motion, all delegates are advised to speak, because you will be stating your opening speech, which is the speech that will give us a brief idea about your country's position, and your committee in general. So you will just state like how all of them are related in a very, very brief paragraph, because you will have limited time. So when a delegate comes up and says motion to set the general speakers list, they will have to insert the topic, which is our topic, and then you insert the time. You have general speakers time and individual speakers time. The general speakers time is how long this list will go on, or how long this motion will stay. Usually it is recommended to keep this time between 10 to 15 minutes, because the sessions in general are time limited. And then you have individual speakers time, which is how long individually will each delegate speak. It is also usually recommended, especially if it's a general speakers list, it's recommended to keep it below a minute so everybody can speak. In the general speakers list and other motions, you can also be added more than once if you wish to. You can simply add, give a note to your chairs telling them that you want to be added, but keep in mind that when you are added again, please do not repeat whatever you've said before. It's not recommended to repeat anything you've said before. And then after the agenda has been set and after the general speakers list is done, the debate formally starts. Moving on to the third motion, which is motion to move to a moderated caucus. It is the same exact thing. It's the same format, how a delegate will raise their placard and motion to move to a moderated caucus. You will state a topic. You usually have a main topic that is given to you by your chairs in the email, but in the moderated caucus, you state subtopics, as in topics that fall under the category of your main topic. You state the general speaker's time, and then you state this individual speaker's time. After the motion is stated, the session or the remaining delegates will move onto the voting procedure, whether they want to vote for it and make it pass or vote against it and make it fail. If a motion fails, other delegates can come up with other motions until a motion passes. And then after this motion ends, if the chair sees that this motion is very interesting or relevant, they can extend the time, or if any other delegates wishes to extend the time, they can again motion to extend the time for about, you can say 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just again keep it to a minimum. Now moving on to the fourth motion with Khalid.
So talking about motion to move to unmoderated caucus. So this is actually one of for me as a delegate, I love this motion. So it's where the discussion happens between the delegates. So whenever a delegate raises this motion, you should mention the topic that should be discussed. So this topic should have a problem, and from this problem, the delegates will be divided into blocks, and each block should find the resolution for this problem. So how would you put your resolution? You will put it in something called a draft resolution paper. We will get more into it and how we can create a resolution papers very soon. Um, and that's it for the unmoderated caucus. Each block is going to create a resolution paper. And also you should mention the time for the unmoderated caucus. It's always recommended between 40 and 50 minutes for the unmoderated caucus. And it's also recommended to raise this motion in the second day of the conference. And that's it for the unmoderated caucus. Let's move on to the motion to adjourn the meeting. Um, of course, this motion won't be raised anytime. The purpose of this motion is to end a debating session. At the end of the day, you are going to raise this motion. Do not raise it anytime. We will be following a timetable. We will be giving it to you. At the end of the day, the chairs will recommend to any of the delegates to raise this motion so we can end the debating session or the day of the conference. Uh, Motion to recess the meeting. It's similar to adjourn the meeting. However, after the session, we will be having a break. Uh, when you raise this motion, you should also mention the time. For example, we'll be having a lunch break, for example, 1 hour. Then you are going, the chairs will recommend this motion. Same as for the adjourn the meeting, we will be following a timetable. The delegate will say motion to recess the meeting, for example, 1 hour. Um, Moving on to the motion to move to voting procedure. So after we have each block has done their resolution paper, the delegates in the committee should vote for this resolution. So whenever we're going to take two, after finishing the resolution paper, two will be with this resolution paper and two will be against this resolution paper, and they will have a small debate between each other. And after they finish the debate, that will be about 5 to 10 minutes, the one of the delegates will raise this motion to move to voting procedure, and delegates will either vote with or against this resolution. So as I said, the committee moves to voting procedure and passes or fails the resolution if the chair sees fit. How will it pass and how will it fail? To pass, the chair sees if anyone who seconds and anyone who opposes the motion. As I said, either you vote with or against this resolution, and he will move accordingly. And if there are several opposing votes, the motion does not pass or the resolution paper will fail. And actually, in the voting procedure, no one is allowed to enter or leave the room while taking the voting procedure. Moving on to yielding the time.
Yes, thank you, Khaled. Okay, now yielding. Basically, yelled at the end of a, basically it happens at the end of a speech. Delegates must yield the remainder of their time to the following. You have now three options. You whether yield your time to the chairs, back to the chairs. I'm gonna explain each one, or yield their time to questions, or yield their time to another delegate. Now, let me explain each option details. Now, the first one, you yield your time to the chair, and we don't prefer that actually, because whenever you stand up, you say your speech, you should yield your time. So when I say that, for example, the delegate of United Arab Emirates yields the time back to the chairs, means you will not be asked any questions. You will sit again, and that's it. You will just say your speech and sit again. Nothing will happen. But if you yield your time to the questions, means you're open for any questions from another delegates, and it can even be from chairs. And we really prefer that. So we can have, like participation in the session. When you yield your time to questions, other delegates can ask you about your speech, can ask you about your country, everything related to the speech that you have said, like while you were standing. And of course, we have like a limited time for these questions, and it can be like the chairs can see if we have enough time. It can be like longer than 5 minutes. Sometimes it can be very short, like 2 minutes. It all depends on the time that we have. Now, the last one, which is yield their time to another delegate, it only happens usually when we are in the resolution, in the third day, basically, when you are representing your resolution to the delegates. You have a team, like your allies that you are working with. So when you yield your time to the delegates, means you're yielding your time to your co-delegate to complete the explanation of this specific resolution. And as I said, it like rarely happens. It only happens in the third day, which is the last day of the MUN in the resolution part. Yes, and that's it. Keep in mind that while yielding your time, you can't use the like any kind of pronouns. You should just say the delegate of your country yields the time back to the chairs or questions. Now that's it. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so now we have points. We have nearly 5 points to talk about. The first one is the point of order. Keep in mind that usually the delegates have like confusion between the point of order and point of information. So focus with me in order to look at the difference between the 2 points. A point of order is basically a point that is raised due to an error with the chairs, a rude comment made by another delegate, or false information being said. And of course, there is no voting required. When you have any point of order, you can't just, for example, there is a delegate who's saying a speech, you can't just interrupt them and say point of order. No, you should wait until they finish, then you raise your placard and you say point of order. You say it loudly. Only in point of order you can say it loudly, like point of order, because you have heard a false information being said by the delegate, or someone is giving you rude comments. It all depends, but it's usually and mainly if the delegate said something wrong about your country, about other countries, about his country. It all depends on what he's saying, he or she. Now, the second one, which is a point of personal privilege, it's a point raised when a delegate is uncomfortable with the surroundings of the room or feeling unwell. Here they gave you an example. A common point of privilege is adjusting the room temperature. You can, for example, if you want to go to the toilets, you can say yes, point of personal privilege. And keep in mind, you can't just interrupt the chairs, you can't interrupt the delegates if they were debating and raise your placard and say point of personal privilege. No, you can just raise your placard if you see that the floor is open for you to actually talk, you know? And as long as you're not interfering with other delegates' debates, the topic being discussed in the session, you can use the point of personal privilege, because you're only using it for your own personal issues. That, for example, you're feeling unwell, you're feeling sick, you're stressed, you want to go to the toilets. You can use the point of personal privilege. Of course, there is no voting required. The third point is point of information. It's basically a point raised when a delegate wishes to ask a question. A question. It must be stated as question to be accepted. Like some delegates usually, and I did this mistake before in my first MUN. I raised my placard after like one of the delegates finished his speech, and he said something wrong. He stated a false information, and I raised my placard for a point of information. That was wrong. I should have raised my placard for a point of order, because in point of information you should end up your comment with a question. You can never just say, for example, this delegate stated this and that in the wrong way. No, you should have a solid question to ask at the end. You can't just stand up and say the false information being stated by the delegate. You should always end it up with a question. I hope you guys understood the difference between the point of order and point of information, because sometimes delegates have confusion between the two. Moving on to the next slides, we have 2 points left. Okay, so the point of parliamentary procedure of inquiry, it basically happens when the delegate has a question about the rules of procedure, flow of debate, etc., and the chair will clarify the point asked and make sure the delegate understands. Now, this motion is made only when the floor is open. How? For example, if you have, for example, let's say we were talking about the roll call. Even though we explained it now, like the difference between present and voting, you didn't understand the procedure. So you can raise your placard for a point of parliamentary procedure of inquiry, but you can't raise your placard if the flow wasn't, available for you to ask. You should wait until the chairs finish their explanation or the delegates finish their debate. You can't just raise it to ask a question about the procedure. And always ask questions that is related to what is happening now in your session. For example, we were doing a moderated caucus. You can't just raise your placard for a point of parliamentary procedure of inquiry to ask about the unmoderated caucus. You can't do that. Now moving to the last point, which is right of reply written motion. It's requested if any delegate feels he or she has been personally subjected to a derogatory comment or insult. If granted by the chair, the delegate is given a certain amount of time to address the committee. Now, this right of reply written motion, it happens when you feel subjected to like a derogatory comment or insult, anything, or you were annoyed by another delegate, for example. You can just write a written motion. You can just write your request on a paper, and then the pager will take it and deliver it to the chairs. Now, if it was granted or accepted by the chairs, they can allow you to address it to the committee. But if it's not, it's totally okay. They can move on and ignore your request, because there is no right of reply to a right of reply. Because sometimes the chairs have no enough time to discuss your issue. Sometimes they see it, that is like unneeded or something, so they can move on and not take your request. I hope there is no questions about the points. We can now move on to the last part, which is the resolution paper.
Yes, thank you, Maram. Okay, guys, the resolution paper happens usually at the end of the second day and like the beginning of the third day. It's basically at the end when we're concluding our session. What is written in the resolution paper? The resolution paper contains the solutions that you propose, the solutions that you come up with your fellow delegates in the committee. It lays out the solutions and all other details regarding the implementation of the solutions. Basically, as we all know, all countries in the world have enemies and have allies. You should keep in mind your allies when writing a resolution paper, because you cannot work with your enemies, because you have to also keep in mind that you're presenting a country, not yourself. So if your friend is with you in the committee, but his country or her country is a country that is an enemy to yours, you cannot work together, because simply that your countries don't work together. Now, in your resolution paper, you have to write solutions that match with your country's laws. So, for example, there are countries in the world that allow soft drugs, okay? And you're in a committee that discusses like drug trafficking or something. You cannot state in your resolution paper to ban all drugs. No, because some types of drugs are allowed in your country, so you cannot ban all types and that would go against, so your resolution would go against your country's laws. So there are two things to keep in mind when you're forming a resolution paper. You have to keep in mind your allies, your country's allies, and you have to keep in mind the laws of your countries regarding the topic that you are talking about. Now we have like the format. You have to have the font as Times New Roman and the size as 12. Now moving on to the clauses that you will put in your resolution paper. There are two types of clauses. Khalid, next slide. Yeah. There are two types. Okay, first type is preambulatory clauses. These clauses are why you have to state in these clauses why your resolution is being made, or the purpose of your resolution, and what this resolution aims to achieve, and past actions that have been taken, such as like references to UN documents, treaties, efforts taken by your country, by the nations, etc. So basically, you just have to give like a brief background, or like the history of solutions done by your country. Okay, and then like solutions done by your country previously, not just your country, because you're writing this as a group of countries, so you have to focus on like things that this group of countries did, as like, you know, like UN documents, treaties, and etc. They cannot include any solutions and are strictly statements of the aforementioned. You cannot include solutions in the preambulatory clauses. You cannot. The other clauses are the ones where you write your solutions in. And then in simple words, this is given context that will be proposed in the operative clauses. So basically your preambulatory clauses is just giving like a brief background to whatever you're gonna write or mention in your operative clauses. Moving on to if you look at the right of the slide, you'll see like sample preambulatory phrases. We will get to that when I show you like the example. Moving on to the operative clauses. Yeah, in the operative clauses, you will write recommendations and details of the actions and recommendation proposed, such as the timeline of implementation, funding, feasibility, monitoring of the progress made, etc. So in the operative clauses, you will actually start to write the actual solutions that you and your teammates come up with. So you will just be like writing the solutions that you have. You will also be following them up with like timeline of implementation, basically details that will support your resolution or your solution. The operative clauses are the most important part of your resolution, and as I said before, these are where you will lay down the solutions you have come up with. And operative clauses have sub-clauses which are used to specify details of the clause. So in these sub-clauses, you will basically, for example, you will say like, you know, stop like trafficking, okay, like stop human trafficking, and then like in your sub-clauses, you will mention like how are you going to stop it, how long is it going to take, how much money will it need to be funded, like the actions that you're going to do, how long will it take. And then you have the preambulatory clauses will have some relation to the operative clauses, as I mentioned. The preambulatory clauses are just like giving a background to your operative clauses. Now, as I said, there's something as sample operative phrases. Moving on to the example. Okay, so you have a resolution paper sample. At the very beginning, you will find in the header, you will find forum, which is your committee, and then you will find question of, which is basically your topic, and then the main submitter. The main submitter is the person. You will be a group of people. The main submitter is the person who will email or be typing down the resolution paper and email it to your chairs. You will be given an email during the session to submit your resolution paper to. And then you have signatories, which are, you can go around the committee and asking people to be signatories to your resolution paper. It basically boosts your resolution paper. And then you have sponsors. The sponsors are the most important part of your resolution paper, because they will be the people who are going to present your resolution paper to the rest of the committee. They are the people with countries that are very strong. For example, if you are a group of 5, Russia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand, your sponsor could be Russia because it's a very, very strong country economically, and like, you know, it has a very high position amongst countries. The number of signatories and the number of sponsors will be set to you during the set by your chairs during the session. Now, moving on, you will see guided, recalling, recognizing. These are all preambulatory phrases. Sorry. This is how you start your preambulatory phrases. You will use such words, and it's given in a table like with the okay, and then preambulatory clauses, as I've mentioned before, they just specify the previous actions. And then we move on to the operative clauses, which start with takes note, with appreciation, encourages, recognizes, and then you write your solutions. And then keep in mind that after every operative clause, you end it with a semicolon. And then in your sub-clauses, which will basically be detailing your solutions, you would be ending it with a colon, okay? And then at the very, very end of your resolution paper, you will end it with a dot, as in you're gonna like a period, you're finishing your resolution paper. And yeah, this is basically the sample resolution paper. And then also, during sessions, your chairs will give you a crisis. What a crisis is, basically, it's a surprise, a topic that is given to you. You still don't know the topic. You will know it during the session. It's going to be like a problem, and you have to find a solution for it. And you have to write a resolution paper also, but not as complex as the one that we introduced to you. So that's it about the crisis. And then also, I have to mention that we have a new award for the delegates. This award is the most interactive delegate award. So it's basically given to the delegate that is most interactive with us on Instagram. So we will be posting polls, we will be posting like questions, we will be posting stuff on our stories, on our Instagram, and the person who is most interactive with them, with these like stories and stuff like that, will be given the most interactive award. And our Instagram, if you don't know our Instagram is at AZPSMUN.team. And I guess we will be writing it down to you in the chat box. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask us. I hope you all understood whatever we explained today, and we will always be here to aid you guys during your sessions. And if you have any questions, again, please do not hesitate to ask us in the chat box. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck. By the way, guys, if you have any question, just write it in the chat box before we close the meeting.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Okay, I think we will be waiting until like 4 o'clock to see if any questions. And then after that, I guess we'll close the meeting.
Yes, exactly. Everyone, just don't hesitate to ask any question. We are here to, help you. If you have any question regarding position paper, points, resolution, motions, just write it in the chat box.
I just want to mention that the deadline for the position paper, it will be on the 1st of May.
Yes, true.
Yeah, and your position papers are submitted before the session, the MUN, and then your resolution papers are submitted during our sessions.
Yes,
Okay.
true. And everyone, keep in mind that if you don't submit your position paper on time, you will not be qualified to win any MUN prize, like the certificates and the prizes that we have at the end. So keep that in mind. Thank you, guys. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I hope everyone understood the informations too. Okay, so I can see a question in the chat box. She's saying, do we choose the country we represent or will they be given to us? Now, I don't know if you saw, but in there was a link that we sent, and you have like your first preference and second one. And I think, did we send them the country matrix till now or no?
No, not yet. We're going to send it on the 30th, 31.
So basically, you don't really actually have the right of choosing your country. You just have like, we choose it for you, and you only have the right to choose your committee, like first preference and the second one. And then at the end, we choose which committee according to the number of delegates that we have.
We will send your assigned countries through email by 31, 1st of April.
Thank you, Farah.
Thank you for listening. It was very helpful. Thank you.
So guys, actually we changed the Instagram account name. It's going to be AZPSMUN without .team. So I'll send it now. Okay, yes, I think we can end the meeting now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Good